Okay, everyone, welcome to Challenge Day 5. I hope everyone is good. My name is Lee Goldstein. I'm the Trading Director at 10 Minute Trades. It's a Sunday, and it's nice to see so many people here on a Sunday ready to do some work, so that's good. So let me know. Just want to go over the beginning of the class. I know that Muriel had a problem that has been solved. Muriel, I'm sure you saw my recent email. Muriel could not get her demo account to log in to her data. And then I'm just wondering, Yak, if you were able to get finally, can you see your charts on NinjaTrader yet? I'm just wondering what happened with you and your charts. Okay, so Yak, what was the problem? Just so people know, type in what the problem was, because that way we can tell people who were starting out. What Muriel's problem was, just so everybody knows, is she signed up for the demo account with NinjaTrader, and there was a little bit of confusion over which data provider to configure. Now, here's the crazy part of it. They told her in an email to use NinjaTrader Continuum. When I tested NinjaTrader Continuum for Muriel, it didn't work. But they also told her to turn the data on. The demo should have been checked. Crazily enough, it also worked on plain old Continuum with the data unchecked. So who knows what's 100% right? All we care about is that Muriel got it working, and that's the key. So her data is working. I know that for my account, when I configure it, I had the demo turned off in the configuration. But every now and then there are some configurations that it will be on. So, if you have an issue, you let us know or you'll let NinjaTrader support know. And Cal, what's the problem that you're having? Cal, what problem you're having? You've loaded the program correctly and it shows up in the NT, right? Okay. Okay, well, we're going to go over all that today, Cal. We're going over software today. So, I'm sure that we will get it set so you can get it going today. That I'm sure of it. I'm sure my guess is it's very similar to a problem that Yak had. And when you say you cannot get it to work, can you be more specific? Be more specific. So let me go over what we're going to do today. It's challenge day 5. I've made a slight change to the schedule. I really feel that we should do software today before the testing because it'll make it easier to do market replay and testing if you know a little bit more about using the software. So we will do regular just the first day of software training today, and then we'll do the market replay tomorrow, and trap trade will be the next day. Okay, that's the plan for today. So let's get started on the software. Now, just understand it is important that people do understand that the use of the software for the challenge is not covering every single feature that our software has. We're basically covering two setups that we use, the breakout setup and the trap trade. The software is capable of a lot more, but it would take a lot more time to go over every single feature of everything the software can do. So you have to have reasonable expectations and enough time to do the things that we need to do. So I just want everybody to be aware of exactly what we're going to cover. Now, unfortunately, the markets are closed today. But it doesn't really change our ability to learn how to enter items into the software and to learn about what the software is all about. So, first of all, type in yes or no that you have the software installed. Yes or no that you have the software installed. Okay? I just want to see hands on whether or not the software is installed. Yes or no. Well, Cal, if you don't have the software installed, how could you possibly see it? So I'm a little bit confused what you're saying. Okay, installed. Okay, installed is all I want to know at first. Okay. Um, So it looks like almost everyone has it installed. How about, come on, I want to see an answer from everyone in this room. Every single person. Every single person. Come on. Let's get an answer from every person. Installed, yes or no? Installed, yes or no? Muriel, you think so? Okay. Okay, fair enough. I want to know if you think so or if you're not sure. We're going to go over that stuff. We're going to go over that. All right. Shalom, I know you know. I know you've got the software installed. Now, Shalom, you should be downloading the newest version if you haven't done it in the past 3 months. Okay. Just so you know, make sure you get the most current version. We've done some upgrades over the years. So most everybody at least is installed. Now Muriel's not sure, so okay. We're going to talk about how you can tell if you're installed. Now, most of you have already also sent your machine IDs, okay? That's an action item. If the job files, okay, now let me make it clear. What do I mean about installed? I mean installed into NinjaTrader. I don't mean downloaded onto your computer. So since there is confusion, we are going to install the software one time, okay? So, and I don't care if, we're absolutely people need this refresh because there's a lot of confusion out there. So we sent the document that explains how to install the software. Don't forget, you have a document that goes through installing the software step by step. All you have to do is go through that document, and that document is going to help you install the software, okay? So now I was doing something else, so I'm going to just install my NinjaTrader as if I just booted up. I just booted up for the day. NinjaTrader is loaded and I have my charts. You can still boot up even on a Sunday, even if the market isn't open yet. Okay. And if we look at our software installation sheet, okay, there's two files you have to download, the breakout file and the trap trade file. So I'm going to hold down the control button on the file name, okay? And it's going to bring me to a Google Drive download screen. I'm going to click on the down arrow on the right, and the software is going to download onto my machine, Joe Bracket Breakout, okay? So I know that both files, make believe I did that twice, all right? And I also did it for the trap trade. So on my computer is our files, the files that you need to install into NinjaTrader. They're zip files. You're not going to extract them. Don't try to mess around with the files. We don't say extract them. You're going to import them into NinjaTrader. So you're going to go to new. You're going to go, forgive me, you're going to go to tools. You're going to go to import. You're going to go Ninja Script add-on. And then it's going to open up a screen, a Windows installation screen. And if the file isn't right there at the top, you have to find that file on your computer. On my computer, all my files go to my download folder, okay? So I would double click on my download folder, and at the top is the Joe Bracket Breakout. Okay, so once again, the file is on my computer. I go to Tools, I go to Import, Ninja Script Add-on, and I get the Windows dialog. I go to wherever the file is downloaded to. Everybody's machine could be different. My files go to my download folder. I see the breakout file. I'm double clicking it. I'm going to probably, everybody might be getting this same warning. Using third-party add-ons could impact your performance. It's okay. Just okay it. That's normal. It's not anything to worry about. Okay it. Now, on some computers, if you have software that's similar already installed, and maybe you're installing a new version or whatever the reason, if you have files that are similar, you might get this message. File Joe Bracket Breakout already exists on your PC. Would you like to replace the existing file? I'm going to say yes. If the message was you have a newer file on your computer than the file you're trying to install, keep the newer file. Okay? Keep the newer file. Now, I said yes to that. NinjaTrader now just gives me a warning that I have to reboot the platform and start from scratch. Now, the software is installed, the strategy is installed into the NinjaTrader platform. So I'm going to stop right now. Does everybody understand everything that I just did? Because that's what you have to do to install the software. Anyone has a question, please ask it right now. Ask it right now. Otherwise, type in yes, I understand. I'm going to really push everybody to be very interactive today. I want to know that you're paying attention, that you understand. All right? It's important. Okay. So people are saying yes. Very good. Very good. All right. So now, if your charts are up, whether or not we're connected to replay on a Sunday or not, doesn't matter. We can still access the software. On any chart, right click the chart, go to the strategies tab and double click it. And then go to you. Now, I'm going to stop. Does everyone see our software installed into their NinjaTrader under the word available? Does everybody see it under the words available? Okay. Now, most of you see it because most of you are okay. So Cal, if your software doesn't show it there, then there's some sort of a problem possibly with your NinjaTrader. And the only thing you can do is talk to NinjaTrader tech support because there's nothing that unfortunately I can do to tell you why it's not showing up, unfortunately. The only thing that I would try, first of all, I'm assuming you absolutely rebooted your NinjaTrader platform, correct? If you rebooted your NinjaTrader platform and it's still not showing up there, and you've reinstalled, then there's something wrong with your NinjaTrader installation in general, and you need them to help you. I don't know the answer because it could be so many different things. So what you want to do is send an immediate email to NinjaTrader, and I'll tell you the quickest way to do it. The quickest way to do it is use the help function on the platform and do it this way. Help, email support, and make sure that your log and trace files are connected and they're checked. And the reason for that is so it saves you an extra email step. And they will get back to you. Maybe even, I don't know if they'll get back to you this evening. It'll be by tomorrow, and they may have to remote into your machine. And they're very good and very fast about it. I'm sorry that I can't help, but I just don't know what to tell you to do, unfortunately. Okay, because it's not a software issue. It's a NinjaTrader installation problem. I've seen it on occasion, um, and unfortunately, I don't know the answer. Now, I would, if it were my computer, obviously, just as a double check, I'm sure you've rebooted. I'm sure you've uninstalled the software. If your NinjaTrader is a brand new installation, you could make sure you're running the most current version of NinjaTrader. Um, in other words, you could reinstall your NinjaTrader without doing any harm if you understand enough about NinjaTrader. Uh, so there is a link that if you want me to find the link for you, I can send you a link that will allow you to install your NinjaTrader without doing any harm to it under most circumstances. Or you could wait for them. They are usually very quick. Okay. Do you know how to reinstall your NinjaTrader? Not just our software, but actually reinstall NinjaTrader? If you know what, if you just remind me before we leave today, I'll find the link for you. It'll only take me 30 seconds. Okay? Just remind me before we leave. I'll happily look for you. Okay. All right. So let's backtrack for a second. So everyone, we'll get Cal straightened away. They will get him going. They always do. So everybody has downloaded the platform, and in order to get the platform so that you can see it, you right click, data, right click so you see the word strategies, and then under available, everybody should see the software. Okay. So you then double click JOBB version 10 so that it appears under configured. Now, the reason you need it under configured is because that's where once it's installed, then it allows us to make changes to the inputs. All of the items on the right are inputs, okay? And I know there's a lot of them, but most of them don't get changed. Most of them don't get changed. Okay, so let me just stop for a second. So Bruce, it's a very similar situation. So folks, give me 1 second. Let me find uh, this link if I can. Give me 10 seconds. 10 seconds because I have the link right here. If you need to reinstall your NinjaTrader, here's the link, okay, that they will give you. And I'm posting it in the chat and in the questions, okay? So anyone who needs it should see it. That will allow you to reinstall your NinjaTrader. You need your license available, okay? Now, one question. This cannot be the free version of NinjaTrader. If you don't have a demo of NinjaTrader or you don't have a subscription to NinjaTrader, that's the problem. You cannot use the free version of NinjaTrader with any company's add-on software. It's not the right version of the platform. Okay? So just a heads up. Just a heads up. Okay. So you've installed the software. It showed up in the strategy section. You've double clicked on the software name, and now it says JOBB breakout trade, and we have all our inputs to the right. So let's go over what the important inputs are, and let's use a breakout trade DMM to help us as our guide, okay? So I'm going to take a recent DMM. I'm just going to pull one out of my file, all right? And just bear with me. Let me get one. I want to get one that preferably is not a picture. So give me half a second, if you don't mind. And I will get one for us. And I will include it as a handout, okay? So let's make this a handout so everybody has availability to this DMM. All right, give me one more second. And if I can put it in the handout, I will. 2 seconds, I apologize. I wasn't planning on doing it quite this way today, but every now and then I change things up, so it is what it is. ADP. So I'm going to include a DMM that we're actually be using something similar to that particular DMM this week. If you're one of the folks that comes into the trade room, you'll see that we're using it in the trade room. So it'll be great to have your hands on it a little bit early. Okay, so I'm going to put it in the handout folder and you'll see it in the webinar. Okay, you'll see it's going to show up. Okay, get ready because I'm putting it in there right now. Okay, so I'm uploading a file. It's just called DMM handout. Okay, DMM handout. All right, so this is the DMM I'm going to use just for a guide as we input items into our software. This was a recent ADP trade, all right, that we traded, and it's got February's, this was last month's setup, okay? It's February 1st. It's the ADP report, non-farm employment change, they call it. We trade gold on this report, okay? So first thing we want to do is let's cancel our software, cancel, and put your chart GC 04-23. GC space 04-23. Okay. And you should have a gold chart. And of course, the market's closed, so charts aren't going to be moving. All right. If you don't see any data, make sure your Ninja Trader is logged in and connected to your data. Okay. And click the F button if you don't see any candles at all. Generally, when you don't see candles, it means you don't have data. Okay. Because even when the market's closed, you should see data. So let's start. How do we access the software on a gold chart? Right click the chart, click on the word strategy, and then again, you're going to double click on JOBB version 10. And now under configured, you'll see our software, JOBB, and you'll see all the items that we call inputs or fields, whatever you want to call them. Okay, the first thing you should know is if you hover your cursor over the text of the item, it will describe the item. Okay, and the text will appear for about 10 seconds. So it tells you, it defines what the item is. And on some of them, it will define the format that you enter the item in. In other words, it'll define the format in which you enter a number or whatever into the field, the input. For instance, profit target 1, 0 equals no target. Okay, if you want a target of 5 ticks, you're going to say 5. Okay, but we're going to go top to bottom. Let's go top to bottom. Trade type. Okay, that's the type of trade we're going to be trading at this particular event. If you click the right arrow down, we have all these different settings, all these different trade types. But remember, for the challenge, we're really just dealing with breakout trades. Okay, that's what we're dealing for within the challenge. So you could leave it on breakout trade because that's the default. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to see us do other things in the trade room. You will, and you'll learn extra things if you come into the trade room, okay? So it's great to be coming into the room. So we have a breakout trade. Most DMMs, if there is a bracket, it's a breakout trade. We don't label the DMM breakout trade because that's the default trade unless the DMM says something different. So when you look at the yellow line on most DMMs, right? If there's just a simple bracket setting, that gives you a heads up that you're trading a breakout trade. So the trade type should be breakout trade. And then you want to know how to enter the time in. So you'll notice there's 3 positions for time. So let's say we were starting a trade and we were activating our trade at 8:30 in the morning or 8:29 and 59 seconds. Okay, so we use 24-hour time, military time. Use your local time to enter your time in. So in other words, if you're in California and we're trading at 9:30 on the East Coast, you're going to be 6:30 in California. All of our DMMs are going to have an exact activation time. It's not a guess, okay? It's almost always going to be exact. So if you're trading with us, the ADP report this coming Wednesday, that report is 8:15 in the morning, and we're going to activate our orders at 8:14 and 59 seconds. Okay? 8:14 and 59 seconds. And then you just leave it. And then what's our bracket? Our bracket says 15. So I'm going to type 15. Position size 1. So what does that mean? Hover the cursor over that. Number of contracts to trade on position 1. One contract. Okay, that's what we're going to start with. Position size 2. Number of contracts to trade. If we trade 2 positions, so that's going to be a 1 also. Make sure you type in the right place. Just keep an eye on what you're doing. Position size 2 is also a 1. So very simply, that means right now that we have a 2 contract trade with a bracket of 15. We're going to put our orders on at 8:14:59. We're not using position 3 at the moment. Our software supports 3 positions, okay? Software supports 3 positions. Activate time. So time is very, very just whatever the DMM says, that's the time you use to activate a trade. The ADP report is 8:15 in the morning Eastern time. Okay? It's 8:15 in the morning Eastern time. That's when the time of the trade takes place. Most of our trades, we activate our orders a second or two before the exact moment of the trade. So XX just means it's either going to be 8 or 5 for Pacific time. We put Eastern and Pacific time on our DMMs. If you're overseas, though, use your local time. If it's 4 o'clock in the morning, your local time, and the trade is at 4:14, 4:15, then you're going to do 4:14:59. We're using East Coast time, so it's 8:14:59. Okay, Yak was asking, so I'm explaining the trade time again. Position size 1 is a 1. Position 2 is also a 1. We're not using position 3 to start on most trades. We're trading 2 contracts. And then we have what's our profit target, number 1. Very often we give targets on our DMM. Understand something very important about targets. Targets are a range. Don't get married to our targets. Our targets are just a guideline, and you can deviate from the targets, okay? I don't want you to deviate from time. I don't want you to deviate from brackets. I don't want you to deviate from stops. And here's the real rule. Do not deviate from time unless you've done your own significant testing. If you're advanced and you want to deviate from bracket and stop, that's fine. But if you're not advanced and don't know yet where and how we came up with those numbers, you should not adjust them. Targets are different. A target, you could watch an event, see how far it goes, and you could say to yourself, that report really goes much farther than the targets that those guys at 10-minute trades are using. I think we could safely go for a bigger target. You're not going to ruin the trade by making your targets bigger. You may make it so that your target does not get hit automatically if it's bigger than the market moves, but the market might then just pause and keep moving in your direction and hit your bigger target. Targets are a range, and sometimes in a trade room, I'll say something like, well, look, I know our DMM says target 1 is 7 and target 2 is 13, but look at the DMM, right? And look at the line after the word win or stop or loss. That line in this area here that I'm highlighting, okay? This area, the last six, is our little journal of what's happened in the last six trades. When there's a winner, okay, there is a spike. This number is a spike, okay? And that spike usually means, and I say usually because this one day was weird. So just ignore that day for this discussion and look at 11:30 was a 37 tick winner. June was a 34 tick winner. And our target two is only 13 ticks. Okay. So if you understand that the bracket must be gone through, you must get to the end of the bracket in order to fill a trade, right? So does everybody understand what I mean when I say you must get to the end of a bracket in order to fill a trade? Type in, you know what I mean. The bracket must be pierced. You've got to move 15 ticks to break the bracket. You got to get through the bracket, right? So I want everybody to make sure they know really, really well that the bracket has to be gone through. Okay? Very, very important. Very, very important. It's so important that I think I might want to show you just quickly, if I could find my crazy bracket screen. Um, well, I will show you before we get out of here. My bracket screen is not in front of me, and I want to spend time looking for it. If there's a bracket above the current price and a bracket below the current price, and it's a 15 tick bracket, the market has to move 15 ticks before you get entered into your trade. So if our target two, which is bigger than target one, because obviously it's got to go further, you add the bracket to target two. That's the maximum move the market has to go in order to hit target two. Also give a few ticks for slippage, right? But let's assume the bracket's 15, target two is 18, that's 28. So the market's got to move 28 ticks to hit our target two with our bracket. So if our spikes are 34 ticks on average, 37 ticks, 26 ticks, those are good targets, okay? Because 13 and 15 is 28. You know, the market's got to move much more than 28 to give us bigger than a 13 tick target. It's got to move, you know, every tick above that, in theory, could give you a bigger target. Now, I don't mind making the targets bigger because we don't know how the market's going to respond in terms of the size of the move. When you have a bigger target, if it's a well performing trade, and you make your target bigger, just be prepared to manage yourself out of the trade. What do I mean by that? A lot of times we will take a trade and the trade will explode and hit all your targets and just boom, it'll just take you out of the trade, right? But other times, if your target is big, the trade might hit your first target and then it might just gyrate around a little bit. And if you think about it, think about what happened in Ali's trade of the week this week, the member trade of the week. If you didn't watch the
Hey
video,
everyone, I want to welcome
here's
you
what
to this
happened.
week's Trade of the Week.
It did
Now,
not go far enough to hit his targets, okay? And neither did mine. Neither did mine. So here was my trade on the trade of the week. Let me just pull it back. Here's the beginning of the trade. There's my brackets, okay? And you can see the price didn't hit both my targets, so I had to manage myself out of the trade. That's what I mean about managing out of the trade. If it hit all my targets, all the orders would be gone and there would be a profit on the screen. So targets are a range because you never know 100% how far the market's going to go. I would rather have slightly bigger targets than targets that are always too small Because if targets are always too small, you're always not going to make enough money. So it's always a benefit. It's a benefit if you're in a good performing event to go for the slightly bigger targets. So if you get a great, fantastic move, you'll have an opportunity to get more profit. Okay? So just understand that your targets don't have to be exactly like mine. You could look at the move in the journal. You look at the spikes. There are some reports where our targets are very conservative, and it's okay to increase the second target in particular. As a strategy and a philosophy, I do like smaller rather than bigger first targets, because when you hit your first target and it gets filled, that means your trade is in a profitable place and you have an opportunity to bring your stop to safety, right? Does everybody understand what I mean by that? Type in yes, I understand, or no, I don't understand what you mean. What do you mean, bring my stop to safety? What I mean is, if you are in a trade that's just beginning and the trade goes in your direction and hits your first target, right? And we can use, let's see if we can use this week's ISM trade. All right, this was our ISM trade. I think we can use it. Okay, here was my ISM trade. You'll notice my first target, let me go back a little bit further. Okay, the trade starts. There's my brackets. It hits my first target, pulls back to break even, and my stop is still as far away as it was on the DMM. Okay, so it's in its most vulnerable position. I'm looking for my price to go further than the entry, which is that big box, so it allows me to move my stop to safety. This particular trade did not have a great follow through, and it just hit my target when I made the target smaller. But if I would have had the chance, I would have liked to have moved my stop from this position here to below the entry because we were short on the trade. So that's a philosophy, though. Stop management is one of the most important elements of trading. There is no one rule. There is no one, this is the only correct way to move your stop. Everybody has different methodology in how they move their stop. It might relate to a report that you're very familiar with and you're very comfortable that a certain report does a lot of chopping around and it has a history of hitting the first target and pulling back. If it has a history of hitting the first target and pulling back, you may not want to move your stop to break even immediately. You might want to take your time before you move your stop. If you move your, I was taught years ago when I traded with John Carter and Hubert Centers, I learned to trade with them. In those days, and it was a long time ago, their philosophy at that time was, if your first target gets hit, most of the time we're going to move our stop to break even. Okay. And you're going to move your stop to break even because then if the trade changes direction, um, you're going to get out of the trade at break even on your second contract. But you can even move your target to your stop to break even if you have not had any targets hit. And that means if price changes direction, you won't make money on the trade, but you won't lose either. So if a trade looks like it's going to reverse on you, you can move your stop to break even. So I will answer all questions. So any questions that you have, just type them into the chat and I'll get to them. I promise. All right. So the point about moving your stop, though, is moving a stop on a trade is very, very personal and very dependent upon your risk profile, the type of event you're trading, whether it chops around a lot. It's, my philosophy now is not to always protect my stop, but I tend to protect it a lot because that's the way I learned to trade. So I don't make my first targets huge because I like to get some profit. So at least I have the flexibility of deciding if I want to move my stop. If you always make your first target way too big, then you will get stopped out more often than if your first target is reasonable and attainable, and it will give you more of an opportunity to manage a trade. Being able to manage a trade means that you didn't get stopped out and you have the opportunity to manage what your profit and loss could be. So managing a trade can be a very good thing. All right. Obviously, the most fun and the best trades are trades that explode, hit all your targets, and you have a profit before you can even breathe. But not all trades do that, and many, many trades have to be managed. So you just want to understand that managing your stop will have a big effect on whether or not you make money or how much money you make on a trade. So be aware, A, you're allowed to manage your stop, you're allowed to move your stop, and it also depends on how the trade is performing. There are times when if you move your stop, you'll ruin the trade because sometimes trades just work well, they chop around a bit, and moving your stop screws it up. So, but it is up to you. No one's going to tell you never move your stop. I'm certainly not. Because maybe there's a trade that you're willing to take a small profit because you're not comfortable with the way the trade is behaving. So that's not an unreasonable thing to do. Okay? Not an unreasonable thing to do. So any questions so far about moving your stop? And there's one quick time question. So let me get to that. All right. Let me get to that. How to adjust the time. Michael, we'll get to that. Michael's asking, how do you adjust? It's not adjusting the time that puts the brackets on the chart. It's applying and adjusting the trade. Okay. Now on a Sunday, you're not going to get normal behavior. You're not going to get normal behavior. Okay. You're just not. So keep in mind on a Sunday, and I'll show you on replay today what I'm talking about. So let's go through the inputs. That's the first thing we got to do is just get through the inputs. So you have 3 positions, how many contracts you're going to trade. We've talked about your stop. So you're going to take your stop and type your stop loss into the software. If the stop says 20, use 20. We are very good about knowing what the proper stops and brackets should be and the time. Okay. Those are things that we really spend a lot of time researching. So if you're going to change those, I'm insisting that you have done your own research or you're opening yourself up to more risk if you do something and you don't know why you're doing it. Okay. Now, we have a feature in the software called Target One Stop Move. Target One Stop Move. Very, very simple. If Target One gets hit, it will automatically move your stop to break even plus that number. So let's say you put the number 5 in there and you're trading a trade and it goes and hits your first target, and that was like an 8-tick target. Your stop will move to break even plus 5 automatically. You don't have to move it. Okay. Target One Stop Move. It will automatically move the stop X number of ticks if your first target gets hit. Target 2 Stop move. If you're trading a 3-position trade, the same thing will happen, but the software will wait for target 2 to get filled. If target 2 gets filled, it will move your stop this number plus the amount of ticks. So maybe you put the number 8 in, your second target gets hit, you've got one target left, your stop automatically moves to break even plus 8. Okay? You could also type BE plus 8. That'll work. Remember what I said about hovering. If you hover over the input, many of the inputs describe how to enter them. Okay? They describe it. We also have trailing. I'm only getting into one simple type of trailing for the challenge. If you want to trail your stop automatically, you can turn on trailing stop. Just turn it on. And then the number of trailing ticks, default is 1. Just leave it alone. And your stop will trail 1 tick at a time for each profit tick at a time. Okay? You can also start to trail when target 1 gets hit or when target 2 gets hit, just by choosing that. Start at target 1. Okay, so trailing just means that your stop starts to move when you're in profit, and it will either start immediately or it can start at target 1 hit, and the number of trailing ticks is the number of ticks it will trail for each profit tick. There's another type of trailing that we do, but we don't really use it very often. It's just, you can experiment and see what it does. I'm not covering it in the challenge, okay? We also have an item, cancel after X seconds. If you notice on the DMM, there's an item, cancel, no fill. Many events have a cancel, suggested cancel, okay? You'll notice also in the trade room, you'll never see me automatically cancel a trade. It's just because over the years, trades change, events change the way they respond to news. If you use the cancel, you might miss more trades than you want. In the old days, when we first got here, canceling at a specific time was much, much more important because more often than not, if the trade got filled later than our cancellation allotment, it would not work out as well. These days, news just responds more slowly at times, so I don't want to auto cancel. I'd rather watch the market and make a decision on my own as to whether or not I want to cancel a trade. However, some people like to use the cancel, and there are certain trades that still stick to it very closely. Oil trades, natural gas. If oil doesn't move the market and natural gas doesn't move the market as soon as the news is released, it's pretty rare that that happens. So if you use the 10-second cancel rule on oil and gas, it's okay. Although, if you notice, I don't know if you remember, but last week natural gas responded very slow to the news. And it was a beautiful, pressure free winning trade. Me personally, I like to watch the market before I use the cancel. My boss is a little bit stricter. He invented the cancel rule. He likes it a little bit more than I do. It's optional. It's up to you. But the software allows you to cancel automatically. Just remember that if we activate a trade 1 second before the time and our cancel is 15 seconds, you have to add that 1 second that the activation takes place before the event. In other words, if we're putting our orders on the chart 1 second before the time of the event, you add that 1 second to the cancel. So in this case, the ADP report is 8:15. Our cancel is 15 seconds. We're putting our orders on the chart 1 second before 8:15. So our cancel should be 16 seconds. Otherwise, you'll cancel your trade too early. You don't want to do that. Okay? Break even delay seconds is a setting that we don't use. Okay, default is 0. Just leave it at 0 for now. Break even Move, stop, break even, X ticks. If market moves X ticks, these are two items we usually use together, and they're very useful. If you are using trading a one position trade, one position trades, believe it or not, everyone in the room, it's actually harder to trade a one position, a one contract trade than a two contract trade. It's easier to make money, in my opinion, on a two contract trade from a physical standpoint, from physical management of the trade. It's easier to trade two contracts. And the reason for that is when you trade two contracts, you don't have to know more significantly where your targets are, because when you're only trading one contract, and you might be trading one contract because you don't have enough money in your account to trade two, or you're just not comfortable trading two contracts. You don't like the risk, might be a reason. But when you're trading one contract, it's much harder to decide where do you put your target. Should you use target two, which is further away, or should you use the closer target, or should you use a target in the middle? So it's just harder to manage the setup with one contract. What this software feature allows you to do is this. The bottom line says if the market moves X ticks, and then the top says move the stop, break even, plus X ticks. That's what it means. So if you're in a one contract trade and it's got a target of 13, you could say something like, well, if the market moves 11 ticks in your favor, move the stop to break even plus 5, so set it to 5. And that way, you're in a one contract trade, right? You don't want to take your profit at 7 because that's the smallest possible profit. This way, if the market moves 11 ticks and changes direction and goes against you, your stop will be moved to break even plus 5. So that if the trade goes against you after making not as big a move as you want, that feature lets you move your stop to profit, and it will take you out of the trade with profit, even though the trade didn't move as well as you wanted. If your target, that way you could set your target, for instance, to 20 ticks. And if you get a great move with one contract, you can have a real nice winner. And if it only moves 13 ticks or so, and it doesn't hit your target, you can still use this feature to automatically move your stop, get out of the trade with a profit. So it's a clever way to move your stop automatically, and it's particularly useful in a one contract trade. So that's something you can experiment with. Because if you're trading one contract, you can't use target one stop move, because if it hits your first target, there's no target left to move. You got that? You got that, people? Get it? If you're trading and you want to use target one stop move, you have to have two targets so that after target one is hit, you can move. All right? So that's major breakout trade values that you're going to change. Now, range trade, we're not dealing with the range trade. We're trading the breakout trade. All of these items, they're not adjusted. You don't touch them. None of them are enabled. None of the boxes should be checked. Okay? We're not using the range trade right now. There is also a mode that we have called unattended. At this point in time with beginners, we do not recommend trading unattended. That means, you can set up a trade and not be at your computer. Unattended mode was really designed for someone who wants to set up a trade. They're not going to be there, but they're in the next room, or they're in bed with their computer on their chest, and they're watching a trade. Yes, you can trade unattended, but be aware it's super high risk. If the internet goes down, if something goes wrong, you can lose a lot of money trading unattended. So just understand what it does, and you don't want to do it unless you can really access your computer. That's the smart way to do it. If you're super experienced and you know what you're doing, you can also, we did put a fail safe into the software. You can put in a percent of loss during a trade. For instance, you could say the number 4, and if you lost 4% of your account on an unattended trade, it would close the trade. But so that tells you, hey, this has risk. So don't trade unattended, really, unless you can get to your computer. That's a smart thing to do. All right. Other items that don't get changed. Strategy internal is the mode that we use for using the strategy. So for now, all of our trades will always be on strategy internal. We are not inserting ATMs into our strategy. So ATM strategy, you do not change it, okay? Our software is a super ATM. What does that mean? It means that when you have a trading platform, a lot of times you have to learn a language, a programming language. And it's usually a reasonably simple programming language, but it's still a pain in the neck to have to do all this extra effort to learn how to tell your trade to move the stop to break even, to put your targets on the chart, blah, blah, blah. We don't have to do any of that. All you have to do in our trade is tell it it's a breakout trade with the trade type, put the activation time on the chart, give it a bracket, put in your positions, put in your targets and your stop. I know it sounds like a bunch of things, but it's really simple. It's so much simpler than writing a language that does the same thing. Our software, if you know you're trading two positions, takes half a second to type in position 1 = 1. If you know your target is 10 ticks, it takes 1 second to type in the number 10. We know what our stop is, right? You're following me? Your trade is going to move the stop. It's going to put targets on the chart. And you already know how to do that. You don't have to write a language. Okay. So we're going to go over to a couple more of these items. And like I said, a lot of them we're not using yet for the challenge. The mode stays strategy internal. ATM strategy, you do not enter. Auto disable after a trade. That's an interesting item. Auto disable after a trade. So we have trades that sometimes you may want to put the trade right back on after it's over. The default for auto is off. Auto disable after a trade is unchecked. We are not disabling our strategy. So let's say you have a breakout trade and the trade is over and it won or it lost. And it's a trade where we want to put another exact same setup on the chart immediately. You just check the enabled button. Let me show you what I mean. So when we type a trade into the strategy, right? And this is what you have to do to complete a strategy, to complete it so the trade can trigger when we're ready for it to trigger. Now, today, because the market's closed, all right, I want to do this with market data. So I downloaded data today. So I had data in my computer. We're going to teach all this, so don't worry. For today, just make believe when you watch my chart that the market is open, okay? It's not, but make believe it is. And I'm going to show you data that I downloaded so I can give you a good example of what we're talking about here. It'll take me half a second. And I downloaded the gold data from Monday. Okay, this is the gold chart from Monday so that I can show you a real trade. So the gold market is actually moving, all right? It's actually moving. I'm setting my market to 9 o'clock in the morning, all right? And you'll see the market is actually moving. So we're getting back to setting up the strategy, right? and I was saying auto disable after a trade. So if I have a simple bracket trade that we just set up, it's a breakout trade. I'm going to set the time to 0 so that every trade always triggers because the software thinks the time has already passed. The time is past 0 o'clock, so every trade the software thinks time has passed. All I'm going to do is set up a simple 10 bracket. I've got one position with a 10 tick stop with a 0 time. In order to get a trade, okay, in order to get a trade onto the control center up here so that we can enable the trade so it will work, you have to apply the setup and okay it. When you apply it and okay it, it shows up on the control panel. Here's our trade setup, but you must have your tabs on strategies, okay? When I enable the trade, my brackets will show up immediately because it's 0 o'clock. The time has passed. Watch. There's my brackets. Make believe this trade just ended. If it
Order
ends,
submitted.
the checkbox goes away. But I want to put another trade on right now again for whatever reason.
Order
I
canceled.
can re-enable the check button. That's that's because the software is not
Order submitted.
auto disabled. It
Order
allows me
canceled.
to re-enter trade after trade after trade. There's earnings trades where we might do that. There might be a breakout trade where maybe the news came out at the wrong time and your trade triggered early and you want to put the exact same trade on at that moment. Auto disable is a default, okay? It's a default to being off. We're not disabling the strategy, okay? So just remember that we are not disabling the strategy. So you can put it on a bunch of times in a row if you wanted to. Show vertical line on entry. That's very simple. When we enable a trade, it puts a line on the screen. Some people hate the line. That line, that vertical line, if you don't check that box, that line will be
Order
gone,
submitted.
okay? I'm used to it for years of trading that way, so I leave it on. If you don't
Order
like it, you can
canceled.
turn it off. It's up to you. So you can see that many of these items are default. Entry canceled if gapped, entry slippage ticks, leave them. They are defaults. They relate to many years ago when we did some things differently. You can use stop limit orders if you want to. We do not recommend using stop limit orders because our strategies move too fast. The markets move too fast. If you use stop limit orders, you will miss many trades. The market will shoot right past your event and it will not get filled. Real-time error handling, just leave it the way it is, okay? It's on a default. There's no reason to change it. Account warnings enabled. If you're trading live money and you forget if account warnings are enabled, the software will ask you, do you want to trade live money? So it's up to you if you want to leave that on or off, all right? The magnet trade, like I said, we're dealing with the breakout trade and the trap trade for the challenge. One day, if you stay with us, we'll explain what the magnet trade is. It's just not something we're covering today, but you don't have to touch it. Don't enable it, because if you enable it, it's going to do things you don't expect. Just make sure it's unchecked. Same thing with the high of the day, low of the day. It has to do with the magnet trade. Under data series, when you do a trade, the input series should be the same chart that you're trading. So in other words, if we're trading gold, when you go check on your trade as you're going through all the items, the input series should be the chart that you're trading. That is a default. 99 times out of 100, it will be the chart that you're trading. It will be the chart that you're trading. Okay. Under account, depending what account you are able to choose. If you have a live account, you'll be able to choose live. If you're on playback, you have to make sure you choose market playback. If you're on a regular trade, you're logged into your data, you'll usually have the choice of sim or your live account. Just choose the account you want to trade. Calculate all of our trades. We're calculating on each tick. Okay, that's the way we do it. So just leave it. Don't change it. The label JOBB version 10. I love the label feature. It allows me to name a trade. So if I'm to name a setup on the control panel, so if I'm trading multiple trades, multiple setups on multiple charts, I can see different names for each event. Watch what I mean. So look, in the label, I changed the label to hello, hello, apply, okay. In the control panel, now under strategy, always be on the strategy tab. Under strategy, I could see it's hello, hello. If I wanted to set up a second trade, usually on a different chart, right? Like for instance, oil, if I had a second trade set up for however I had it set up, doesn't matter, but I could go down to the label and I could call it oil, right? Apply it and okay it. And you notice I've got two events now. Whoops, two events. One's called oil, oil. One's called hello, hello. Maybe I need to cancel the oil trade because I want it canceled. So all I have to do is make sure the box is not checked. The enabled box puts the brackets, starts the trade, right? It will put brackets on a trade if I have it set up as a breakout trade. Now, why did it put it on the gold chart? Because look, I chose the gold trade
Order
to
submitted.
turn on the bracket. Okay. If I
Order
choose the
canceled.
oil trade and turn the bracket on there, it would put it on the oil trade. The price needs to move properly also. Okay. Now, I did not look at my settings on that trade. Okay, it has a time setting. That's why the brackets didn't show up. It's set to trigger at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. If I make sure that my time is set to 0 right now, so we don't have to wait for a specific time, the bracket trade will trigger immediately. So there's my oil trade and there's my brackets. Okay, turn off a trade, just uncheck the checkbox. Okay, there's a
Order
couple of
submitted.
questions, so let me
Order
go
canceled.
through a couple of questions. Okay, so Michael, you now know how to make your brackets show up on the chart. You have to apply and okay the event, the trade setup, and when you enable it in the control panel, that's when your brackets will show up. You have to apply and okay the trade, right? So when we're looking at the
Order
setup,
submitted.
we're looking at the setup.
Order
If you make a
canceled.
change, our setup's already there. We don't have to apply it and change it. It's already there in the control panel. Let's say I made my bracket bigger, made it 12 instead of 10. I have to reapply it and okay it. And then when I enable it, then the brackets will show up. Okay? Then. Not until then, and not until the market moves so it can calculate the bracket. One little trick everybody should
Order
know, just so
submitted.
you don't go crazy.
Order canceled.
If you're trying to change a setup and your trade is enabled, like so, and the trade is off, your orders are off the chart, but the trade's enabled,
Order
and you
submitted.
go into the
Order
strategy like you
canceled.
normally do, and you want to adjust it, and everything is grayed out, it's because you can't adjust the strategy settings when the trade is enabled. So just try to remember that, disable it, and then you can go in and re-edit your inputs. Okay. Let me answer a couple of the questions. Let me answer a couple of questions. I do want to remind everybody that if you're not coming into the trade room, you do have the opportunity to still sign up for a full week of trades this week. So watch your email, okay? You can get the DMMs and the trade rooms for the full week this week, and there's some really great trades coming up this week. So I'll remind you of that before we leave as well. Do I think it's a good idea to pull up a 5-minute chart to study the price action over the past hour prior to the news to know where the support and resistance levels are so you can manage your stops better? I mean, absolutely, John. If you're a big support and resistance kind of person, there will be trades that will sometimes move right to support and right to resistance. It's totally up to you how you want to manage your stops ultimately. Support and resistance can absolutely help. So if you like pulling up a 5-minute chart, absolutely do it. There are times when we look at support and resistance for trades. But other than that, I don't do a lot of tech support because most news trades blow through the support and resistance. Sometimes they'll return to it, but many times they just create new support and resistance. So, you'll decide which trades you think have that ability and what makes sense. But yes, there are times, just like any trade, where you'll be able to look at support and resistance and it will help you to manage a trade. Also, the news result will help you manage a trade. Support and resistance isn't going to help you very much if the news result is so negative and it's causing the trade to move in an opposite direction to what you think it should be going. So there's a lot of elements that are going to come into play, just like any trade. But absolutely, we like support and resistance without a doubt. Without a doubt. Yak is asking, can I explain fixed distance ticks again? So I'm looking, we're loading up the software and clicking. Anytime you want to look at the software settings, right click the chart, click on strategies, okay? Click on the name of the software, which is already there in this case. And he was asking about trailing stop, okay? The trailing stop mode, if you turn it on, okay, we're not using the fixed distance. Okay, so just ignore it. It's not being used, and we're not teaching that in the challenge. We're only using, I'm sorry, I forgot something very important, tick for tick price movement. Yak, thank you very much. I made a mistake. And on trailing stop mode, turn it on and change to tick for tick price movement. And that means your number of trailing ticks will move one tick for each tick of positive movement. So I made a mistake. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. If you're using trailing stop, turn it on, change the trailing stop method to tick for tick price movement, and then the number of trailing ticks is the number of ticks it will move, the stop will move when you're in a positive position. So if you're turning on your trailing and the stop, your trade goes 3 ticks in your favor, then you should have roughly 3 ticks of positive movement in the direction of your trade with the trailing. Okay. So my mistake. I forgot to remind everyone, turn on tick for tick movement. All right. We're not using the fixed distance for the challenge. Okay. Good question, Yak. My mistake. Um, Mohammed, you got to be more specific. So please type in more specific what you mean, where you're trying to log in. I can't help you without a little bit more information, please. Okay. So let me know exactly what you mean, a little bit more specifics. Okay, so there's a couple more things I want to go through on settings. All right, we went through every setting. We're now at, remember, we're not doing anything with range, unattended, not to be used at this point in time. The mode, strategy internal is the default. ATM strategy, leave it alone. Default, auto disable, default is off. Direction, all right, direction. It's a command that we actually have other setups that deal with direction. If you ever had a trade that you know you want to trade and you don't want to go in all directions, you could choose to trade long only or short only or both. The default is both. I would recommend just leave it on both because for most trades, the strategy is going to deal with it and you don't have to do it. In this area, we have actually updated a lot of our software so that there are buttons now that appear on the chart that will handle direction if you want to trade directionally. Okay, the vertical line is up to you if you want it to show up. Don't mess with the error handling, just leave it alone. You're not going to ruin everything if you change it, but don't change it. All right, you don't need to. We don't use the stop limit orders, so we're going to go down to the data series. All right, you want your data series to match the chart that you're trading. So if you're trading gold, your chart should match. The account, if you're on playback, if you're on sim, if you're live, those are the choices you make. And then we were talking about the label. You can label a trade, a setup, anything you want. Freebird could be the name of your setup. And when you apply it and okay it, that's what will show up in the parameters in the control panel. Okay. And then you're down to the bottom. We don't change order fill resolution. We don't change wait until flat. We do have an enabled button. You could enable the trade from within the software, but think about it. What if you made a mistake on time and your time is wrong and it's early? If you enable the trade inside the software and then you apply it and okay it, it could accidentally trigger a trade early if you made a mistake. So I don't recommend using the enabled button inside the software. Enable the trade on the control panel. It's just one extra label of safety. Okay, one extra label of safety. Fair enough? Let's see what else we got here. Um, Order fill res we did is default. Fill limit orders on touch, leave it alone. We're not using it. Slippage is 0. Exit on session close, default is checked. Okay, everything else is default. You don't change anything. Once you're done with your label, nothing gets changed. Okay, if you then want to apply and set up your trade so it shows up so it could be used, you click apply and okay. And then when we're ready to trade, boom, you click it and your brackets, if your time is set properly, will show up and you're ready to trade. Okay. And that's how you enable a breakout trade. So let me
Order
show you
submitted.
from a DMM,
Order canceled.
okay, how you would enter, for instance, if this is the DMM that we use for Wednesday's ADP report, here's how you enter the ADP report. You're going to right click. Let me get rid of my strategies, okay? I have strategies on the control panel. If I highlight it and right click it, I can remove it. Highlight it and right click it, I can remove it. All right, I bring up my DMM. I've got nothing on my control panel. Right click the chart, click on strategies, double click on JOBB version 10. And now we're going to enter using the yellow line as much as possible our trade setup. It's a breakout trade. Remember, if we have a bracket, it's a breakout trade. Our default is a breakout trade. Our activation time, the trade's at 8:14, at 8:15 in the morning. We're activating 1 second before 8:14. It's Eastern Standard Time. I'm typing in 8:14 and 59 seconds. If right now it's 8:14 in your area, you're in Eastern time. If right now it's 5:14 in your area, you're on Pacific time. If you're overseas and it's 2:14 in your area, you're going to type in 2:14:59. Okay? Use your local time. Otherwise, the trade won't trigger. Our bracket is 15. So I'm going to type in 15 for the bracket. We have two targets, okay? A target of 7 and a target of 13. So position size 1 is one contract. Position 2 size we're also using as a 1. We're trading a 2 contract trade. Position 3 we're not using. We're just trading a 2 position trade, 2 contracts. Profit target 1 says 7 on the DMM. So I'm going to type in a 7. My target 2 is 13. We're going to type in 13. Our stop is 20. Our stop loss ticks is a 20. Okay. We don't have to do anything else. All right. Everything else is on default. Okay. If you change something, make sure if you don't want to trail that your trailing is off. Okay. Nothing else is going to get affected. If you leave numbers on and you forgot, just reboot your platform and start from scratch. Okay. If you're confused, you could always just reboot, start from scratch. We're not using our range trade settings. Okay. You don't change any of them. We're not unattended. You don't change anything. We're not changing anything in all the defaults for optional. Okay. Everything is a default. We're not using the magnet trade. Okay. We're not plotting highs and lows. We've entered everything, but there's a few other things to check. Make sure you look at your input series. It should be the instrument that you're trading. We're trading gold on this event. The market is gold. And our chart is 423. So that's what the input series should match our chart. Okay. The account should be your SIM account or your live account. The label, if you want to call this ADP, you can. I like to tell the strategy what instrument I'm trading and then give it a name. Everything else is default. Apply it, okay it, and you'll now notice we have a GC ADP trade set up in our strategy. We took it from the DMM. Okay, we took it from the DMM and we're ready. That's it. That's our trade. We're set to go. The profit target is measured from the fill, Yak, not from the bracket. The profit target is where you got filled. Okay. So if the trade, let's set the time to 0. If you want to test a trade, we're going to get into breakout, into replay. The time is 0, right? I set the first 2 numbers to 0. So if I'm looking at a replay market, which I am, my trade will trigger immediately. It will not wait for 8:14 in the morning and 59 seconds. See, my trade has triggered. So Yak, when the trade gets filled, that's when it will calculate the target. So that may have been what you're asking. That may have been what you're asking. Jim Butler is asking, you typed in a website. What is this? That was for people that wanted to reinstall their Ninja Trader. Mohammed, we do our customer support here, not over the phone. So I need to know where you're not able to log in. Okay. When you say you can't log into the 10-minute trade service, the best thing to do is send me an email, help@10minutetrades.com. Explain what the problem is, and I'll explain a solution. Most probably you are trying to log in on our a 10-minute trades website. You have to make sure you create a password for yourself. And let me just and put something in for you that will help you. You can use this link right here that I'm sending you now to create a password for yourself on our website, and then you will be able to log in. Okay? That's the link that will let you create a user ID. Okay, keep the questions going, folks. Let's get the questions going. Um, What's our action item of the day? Our action item of the day is to take a DMM,
Order
and I'll tell
canceled.
you what, we're going to take a DMM and we're going to enter it. You're going to enter it in the software. And I'll tell you what, it's a tricky item, an action item um, to post. I'll tell you what makes more sense. I would like everybody to post a picture of the fact that you've got our software activated. You've got your software activated. Okay. So how do you know if your software is activated? How do you know if you have your software activated? Remember what we said, that if you're connected to your normal data, right? You're connected to your normal data. When you just apply and okay a default trade, you could go to strategies, double click JOBB version 10, and you can go make sure you're in sim, go right to apply and go right to okay and enable the trade. And if you're enabled and active, you'll see the icon JOBB version 10. I'd like everybody to post JOBB version 10, that picture. Take that picture and post it to Facebook so we know that everybody has this software activated. Because we did the action item together in the room. We entered the DMM, we entered software from DMMs, and we've done it multiple times. So I just want to make sure that everybody is activated. If you get an error and it says you are unauthorized to use the software, send us an email, even if it's again, even if it's again, with your machine ID. Michael, you're not going to get brackets today because the market's closed. So you've got to wait until tonight when the market opens. You're not going to be able to test your brackets. The market's closed. The market is not calculating because it's not open. Okay. You'd have to use replay, and we'll get into replay tomorrow so you can test without the markets being open. Okay. Um, More questions, folks? I'd like to see some more questions. So one more reminder, let me post the link. It's really, look, I'm not trying to squeeze more money out of everybody, but if you come into the trade room for the week, you will learn how to use the software and set up trades so much faster than doing it on yourself. Whatever I don't remember what the upgrade pricing is. I think it's 87 bucks or 97 bucks. It's well worth it if you want to spend the time learning really more deeply how to use the software. It's an option. If you think it's worth it, I'll give you the link right here. But now, for now, give me more questions about setting up, if you have any other problems about setting up the software. Let me just post that for you all. There's a post, and there's a post sent to everybody. Um, Mohammed, Mohammed, when you mean it won't let you set your password. Let me go to the website, Mohammed. Mohammed's having a problem logging in to our website. So everybody should create an account for themselves and log into our website, all right? And when you get to our website, it looks like this, all right? If you take the free video, right, and you put your email address in, we will automatically send you our weekly schedule for free, okay? So if you want to opt in for the weekly schedule, you can do that. Otherwise, normally you'll get to this screen, okay? I mean, it doesn't matter. And this screen will let you create an account. Let me show you the link that I sent Mohammed. So this is the screen you get when we're creating your own account. So Mohammed, I'm not really sure why the account won't allow you to make it. So maybe you're already a member. Maybe, just click log in now. Send me an email so I understand exactly what's going on. And John, when you try to enter a new time in the software, the colons must be there. Absolutely. That is the format of the time. Okay, so when you're typing in, when you're creating a setting, the colons must be there. Absolutely must be there. Okay, colons must be there. Okay, any other questions? Any other questions? Everybody, so what's the extra action item? Our main action item is everybody has installed settings into the software from a DMM. Our extra action item, right, is I'd love for everybody to post on Facebook. Here's Facebook. Take a picture. Remember how to take a picture? If I activate my software, right, if I'm starting from scratch, like many of you, all you have to do is click strategy. Do it today when the market's closed on SIM. Double click JOBB version 10, apply it and OK it, and click enable. Take a picture and post that picture on Facebook. Look how fast it is to take a picture. I click the snipping tool and then I get that little new, okay? And I take that picture, right click, save as, and I call it icon. And that picture normally would go into my download folder, right? There's my Facebook. I can write a post, right? I could create a post and I could just bring that picture in and bingo. There's my picture, all right? Post it and I did my posting job and now everybody can do it, okay? Everybody can do it. I don't see any other questions. So everybody, I hope you enjoyed today's class. Tomorrow, if you are with us in the trade rooms, it's a late night day tomorrow. We'll be in the trade room at 10 o'clock for a really, really interesting trade tomorrow. The Australia rate statement, okay? A real interesting trade. I believe I answered every question. This is your last chance to ask me a last question for today. How about asking it if you want? I'm happy to answer it. If not, everybody have a great rest of your weekend. Mohammed, I'll look for your email. And everyone, I'll see you all tomorrow. The next class will be tomorrow. We are late, okay? It's a late class tomorrow, 4:30 p.m. And Eric has a bonus class at noon, okay? Eric has a bonus class. So watch your email for the bonus, for signing up for the trade rooms and DMMs, all the things that, we're asking you to consider. All right? So I hope everybody enjoyed the class today. I'll see everybody tomorrow. Take care.